Hello and welcome to the February 2nd edition of the Gold, Goats, and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo. We've got a lot to talk about. Today I want to talk about Syria, Trump, the pullout. Are we going to pull out? What the Senate has to say about it, all of that. But before we get started, a little housekeeping. We're closing in on 2,000 people here at Gold, Goats, and Guns. It's really cool. It's fantastic. It's been a really great week. I want to remind everybody that for all you new subscribers, for everybody watching for the first time, that we do live streams Monday nights at 8 o'clock and Friday nights at 8:30. They usually go for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half or so, where I take on questions of the day and comments on the events of the day, and then we go into usually open Q&A. It's a good time. It's a high-level discussion, and it's a free form. So come on by and check it out. All right, let's talk about yesterday's or Thursday's vote in the Senate to rebuke Donald Trump's plan or push to pull the troops out of Syria and supposedly Afghanistan. Now, a couple of things are going on here. One, Trump has never officially said anything about Afghanistan pulling the troops that he put into Afghanistan in August of 2017, that apparently those troops would be coming out. That's part of the order to remove the 2,000 troops we have in Syria. Now, 2,000 troops is the official number. The actual number is much higher than that. We also, by the way, still have 5,000 troops in Iraq. Now, the Senate Republicans, led by Mitch McConnell, who has been, for the most part, one of Trump's best allies over the course of certainly the last 9 or 10 months or so. But this was led by McConnell and Marco Rubio of Florida, both massive hawks, and certainly in the pay of AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. It was a 68-23 vote along AIPAC lines. Nobody should be surprised that this was put forth by the Senate, and certainly not put forth by the Senate at this time, because we're starting to run up against the 120-day limit that's been put in place to actually affect this pullout. So logistically, guys have to start moving out of northeastern Syria soon, right? It's been almost 45 days since the president made the initial announcement back on December 20th. So they have to continue to try and lobby this publicly, try and slow this process down. John Bolton's not happy with this, the National Security Advisor. Mike Pompeo gives lip service to it, but he's not happy about this either. Everybody knows that that former Secretary of Defense James Mattis resigned over this decision. Something else to remember, everyone, is that Trump has actually fired the chairman of his Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph Dunford, who has been the commander over in Afghanistan. So, and Dunford for the longest time was the biggest opponent to any kind of practical peace initiative in Afghanistan, holding fast to the idea that we would declare peace, but that we'd keep all our troops there anyway. Well, then it's not really peace. Trump obviously wants them to come home. This was a big sticking point between him and Dunford. Eventually, he just fired Dunford, who's still on the job and going to be there for a while yet, but there's going to be a new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at some point later in the year, at least as far as I understand it. But what's really sad about this vote by the Senate is that it gave people like Kamala Harris and Kristen Gillibrand and Cory Booker and the rest of them, gave them all these easy opportunities to grandstand by voting against this and saying, see, we voted for pulling out of Syria. We're not war hawks, while they go on they start their presidential campaigns. It's the kind of thing that you don't want to hand them, because they're not anti-war. They're not at all interested in ending the foreign interventions overseas or ending the war in Afghanistan or Syria or anywhere else. They just are going to campaign on that and try and seduce what's left of the anti-war left, which isn't really all that strong in the first place, but certainly the center of this country, and try and grab more of the center of this country, the center left of this country, as they embrace a kind of quasi-communist populism that they think is what the center of this country actually wants. Democratic strategy points are for a different discussion, for a different day, for a different discussion, but understand that this was a really bad move politically by McConnell, and it shows just how strong the pull of AIPAC is within our U.S. Senate and the military-industrial complex and everybody else. It's not just AIPAC, but let's not kid ourselves here. The Israelis are the ones who are most worried about a U.S. pullout from Syria, because this is all, for them, it's all about Iran. And Rubio has made it abundantly clear that while, attacking ISIS and getting rid of ISIS is important, to him, stopping Iran is more important. And so at the same time, we have Pentagon and State Department officials constantly trying to undermine Trump, saying we're going to hold on to the base that we have at the border crossing between Syria and Jordan at Al-Tanf. If you don't know where that is, that's in the south central portion of the country, and there's a major road that comes up through Jordan, and it's a major artery between Tehran and Damascus, and then on into to Beirut, to Lebanon. It's the quote-unquote highway in which Iran resupplies Hezbollah and allows weapons to travel over. But to be honest with you, it's not really stopping anything, because according to the Israelis, they're having to bomb Damascus every other day in order to blow up all these Iranian assets all over Syria. Of course, neither of these you can't have both of these narratives happening at the same time. We hold on to Al-Tanf to stop Iranian weapons from getting into Syria, but then the Israelis bomb anything bigger than the Toyota pickup truck near Damascus that they think is housing Iranian weapons. Which one is it? The reality is that the border crossing at Al-Tanf does, for the most part, stop Iranian weapons. The truth is that the Israelis want the Assad regime overthrown, and they want us to do it for them. And that's why they continue to bomb the Damascus airport and everything else. So, in the background of all of this is the Russians just trying to play for time, knowing full well that the political situation here in the United States is against the long-term maintenance of our position in Syria. That's the big thing that's happening behind the scenes here. So you have to look at this from the bigger perspective, which is that ultimately the Kurds in eastern Syria, the SDF Kurds, are going to cut a deal with Damascus and end their separation, pledge their loyalty to Damascus at some point in order to get Damascus some Russian protection from the Turks. And all of these concerns that you're hearing in the news here in the United States and in the West are all come to naught. They have absolutely no grounding in reality. What they have is a stench of fear by the Israelis that they'll have to actually bargain with their neighbors and broker with their neighbors honestly. The good news in all of this is Trump has held on publicly to this position. And I'm going to read you the tweets that he sent out this morning after the vote, because I think they're important. I think they're instructive. They're some of the best things that I've seen come out of Trump in weeks. From Trump, quote, "I inherited a total mess in Syria and Afghanistan, the, quote, endless wars, unquote, of unlimited spending and death. During my campaign, I said very strongly that these wars must finally end. We spend $50 billion a year in Afghanistan, 1/10 of the amount of money that we would ask for a border wall for them, by the way, at this point. And have them hit them so hard, we're now talking peace after 18 long years. Syria was loaded with ISIS until I came along." He's falsely taking credit for all the work that the Syrian Arab Army, the Russians and the Iranians and Hezbollah have actually done in destroying ISIS, not the United States. But we will soon have destroyed 100% of the caliphate, but we will be watching them closely. It is now time to start coming home after many years, spending our money wisely. Certain people must get smart. Well, who do you think those certain people are? That's the interesting question. And to be honest with you, I really do think that he may be actually talking to Bibi Netanyahu here, and that would be fantastic if he is. But the truth of the matter is he's probably just talking to his own party. The peace process in Afghanistan is moving forward, again, with Trump's blessing, but it started in December 2016 with the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, and Pakistanis going to Kabul and starting to sit down with less radical factions within the Taliban and the Kabul government to begin the process of setting things to right. And the Trump administration is now working the other side of that, but that process has been in place for a while, and we're the late ones to the table. Not saying that, not trying to not give Trump credit here for trying to end the war in Afghanistan officially, which he's going to get massive pushback from here domestically, which is a shame. But much like the North Korean peace process, the process started between the Pakistanis and Afghanis, between the Taliban and the Kabul government, well before the United States was interested in any way in actually being a part of that. And same thing was happening over in Korea. The North and South got together well before we were willing to actually do anything about it. And just remember that Trump likes to take credit for things that are not his. And that's fine. And to be honest with you, a lot of his political rivals overseas don't care that he takes credit for things that he doesn't really have a whole lot of influence over. But they know that it's good for him domestically, so they're willing to keep their mouth shut. Putin does this all the time. Putin is willing to let Trump take credit for smashing the hell out of ISIS because to him it doesn't matter. All that matters to Putin is that ISIS is destroyed and that Assad stays in power. If Trump wants to take credit for it and that helps him politically, then it helps Putin. And Putin's a smart enough man to understand this. And so is Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, and so is everybody else. And so is Imran Khan in Pakistan, who, by the way, just outed a CIA cell within its own intelligence services. And that is one of those little tidbits of information that tell you that we're on that events are happening in Central Asia far beyond the headlines that we see here in the United States. And it's very important that you watch for the little things that happen to tell you what's going on within those countries that are most affected by our changes in policy or by our refusal to change policy, and they're just changing their alliances, by deepening their relationship with their neighbors, Pakistan, Iran, India, China, Russia, the Caspian stands, and the rest of them. And that's a far bigger story than we're going to talk about today. Just understand that at a certain level, Trump understands that our positions in both Syria and Afghanistan are not sustainable in the long term. So from his mind, and he's right, let's get out now. Let's stop spending money. Let's stop throwing good money after bad, because there's no reason that we're going to be throwing. If we don't get out now, we're going to have to get out in 6 months or a year or 2 years anyway. Let's just do it now. Unfortunately, the Washington establishment, AIPAC, and the rest of them don't want that to happen. And that's the fight that's going on in D.C. right now. And I hope Trump wins. All right, this has been the Gold, Ghosts, and Guns short news for Saturday, February 2nd, 2019. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. Remember that we do live streams on Monday nights at 8 p.m. and Friday nights at 8:30. Love to have you stop by. We usually have between 75 and 80 people on the channel. And you can follow my work over at goldghostsandguns.com. I also write for Strategic Culture or a Foundation on a twice weekly basis generally, and you can follow my work and support it over at Patreon at patreon.com/goldghostsandguns. You guys have a great afternoon, probably great weekend. Take care and keep your stick on the ice.